So, folks, there is a man named Steven Crowder, and we haven't checked in with Steven Crowder in a hot minute, so I figured we'd go and take a look at what he's doing, right? What's he up to these days? I assume very busy being divorced and racist, but of course he's always able to throw a curveball here and there. I still remember when we checked in for Halloween like 3 years ago, and he just had an entire Halloween special dressed up as a woman pilot for some reason, and had two skeletons that had died from AIDS on the set. And he just kept talking about how much they liked having gay sex. So that's an average time with Steven Crowder, and I figure, what the heck? Let's check in and see if he's still doing the same bit about the skeletons, because dudes like him never come up with new material. And before we get too far into it, hey, like, comment, and subscribe. Do the things that help the channel. That's right, I'm talking to you, Kevin, if that is your real name. Do like, comment, and subscribe. Fucking Kevin. And if your name is Kevin, I apologize for saying your name with a with a swear word in front of it. So you're still great, Kevin, in my book, but you're on thin ice. Watch yourself. Anyway, here we go. Fuck you, Kevin. Oh man, a Steven Crowder employee who can't pay his mortgage? Why am I not shocked?
What the mortgage? What the hell's going on?
You should refinance!
What?
You should refinance with American financing. They could save you thousands of dollars, as they've helped thousands of Americans before me. Don't be like me!
Who are you?
I am the ghost of mortgage future. Every link in my chain was forged by the dollars I could have saved had I refinanced with American financing.
Why though? Why, like, how are you a conservative and you're making a reference to a Christmas, like a Christmas Carol with no, specifically a Christmas Carol with relation to financing? Like, it's the literal Dono ghost. Oh no. Oh god, but like, seriously, how are you? This doesn't work at all. Do you just pick a movie out of a hat and try to make like a reference? Like, just crowbar it in? God. Like, I don't know, make some better references. Like, I don't know, do like 127 hours reference or something. I don't know, I'm just spitballing here. Like, more interesting films. And then at least you won't fall into like this weird like pit trap.
How are you the ghost of me? I'm not even dead yet.
Time is relative. Over the next 3 nights, you will be visited by 3 spirits.
Yeah, that's not gonna work for me. Yeah, I got a show in Pittsburgh on Friday, 2 shows in Cleveland after that. It's
Fine. Just trying to help. Do whatever you want. I don't care.
all right. American financing. I'll call them tomorrow.
One of them is a chick.
She cute?
She's like a 6.
Trust the professionals.
Is American financing okay with like the implication that there's gonna be like a like this guy's gonna go and sexually harass one of their employees? Like, what the hell, Oh wow, okay, yeah, I'm seeing you guys talking about the subtitles. She cute, she's like a dick. Trust the professionals. Oh my god. Trust the professionals. Call American financing today. She's just as good as a dick.
Whether it's a medical procedure or financing your home, call
God.
the pros at American Financing today at 1-800-974-6500 or visit www.americanfinancing.net/Crowder. NMLS 182334. If you start today, you may even delay up to 2 mortgage payments.
There you go. Welcome to Ash Wednesday, and we do have Captain Morgan, CEO here. How are you, sir?
Doing well. How are you?
That's enough.
I'm not
our
smoking.
Guest. Don't jump on our guest. This is supposed to be relaxed, and you see all the tension you just created?
I didn't create any tension.
Andrew Wilson, how are you?
Totally uncomfortable now.
I'm sorry.
Totally uncomfortable now.
So now, if you guys don't know who Andrew Wilson is, I beefed with him on Twitter briefly years ago after coming out to my dad, and I was very upset with how that went. And he wanted to debate why my dad was right to reject me after I came out. Yeah, at the time, he was known as Big Papa Fascist. And oddly enough, he's changed his name, as, you know, fascists are wont to do. And ever since he changed his name, he's been feted around to these various conservative podcasts. Of late, he's gotten bigger by going on like the whatever show and basically shit talking like women who do sex work. You know, just like Jesus. Just like Jesus did. He's a very Christian man.
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me. By the way, to the Crucible crew, just enjoying some vodka and soda. Right? Their crew brought in a nice cigar, treated us really well, rolled out the red carpet. Fantastic show, I must tell you.
Yeah, well, just careful, because afterwards we're having an Eyes Wide Shut party, and I have a mask custom fitted for you, my friend. You give him the password, right?
Nope, no password.
So, before we go on...
Also, okay, since I did come clean about pre-watching this, Steven makes a lot of references to like a lot of references to like gay sex propositions. And like, I, as like a bisexual person, don't really care that much about it, but you know, Steven ostensibly is trying to navigate conservative circles while cosplaying as a straight man. And, you know, he looks batshit insane. Yeah, this is kind of where I was at when I said, you know, he's reached peak divorced energy. Like, I don't think you invite a guy who used to be called Big Papa Fascist onto your show to shit on women without being at peaked divorced energy. Like, maybe he just had to acknowledge that he doesn't have custody of the children. Like, I don't know what's going on in his life, but like, he's not okay.
Before we go,
You said those
To be fair, none of the people on the show are okay.
for props for a skit, bro.
Well, skid.
we method act. We're going to Daniel Day-Lewis this. I want you to, for people who are new to you, and I think a lot of people have seen, you know, your arguments, I guess I should say, or debates, particularly like on Pierce Morgan, Tommy Lahren. We have a clip from that. How would you characterize yourself? Because now things are, you know, there's the red pill movement, and people think of that. You know, some people conflate the whatever podcasts, the Fit and Fresh, Andrew Tate, Black Pill. They throw it all in one pot. So if you were to sort of clarify for them, how would you describe
Yeah, well, I can untangle a bunch of that. So my view, I'm a Christian ethicist, and I...
Yeah. You know, I you know, there's a guy in a tinfoil hat down at the hardware store who's promised me that he's an oracle that can see the future as well. He's a Christian ethicist. You know, he's just a thinky man. You know, just a big-brained ethical man. You know? So at this point I was like, oh, this could be good to go over with you guys. I think this is pretty great. Yeah, a Christian fascist, if you will.
Focused on politics, and specifically politics. I do get in the realm of apologetics occasionally, but you could say that I'm far right, moderately dissident right, something in there. I don't associate myself as being red pill or even part of the manosphere, though I do a lot of debates inside of the manosphere and get along really well with those guys because I've tried to understand their positions, and they have some really good ones. But to untangle what these views...
the manosphere has some really good opinions. Just some 10 out of 10 ideas, some high level ideas, would you say? When he offered to debate me about how it was actually okay to be transphobic to your newly out daughter, I said I would, but I didn't want to cuck him without his wife's consent, and or I didn't want to cuck her without her consent. Rather, he didn't take very kindly to that.
Are the Christian right's constantly tangling with the manosphere because they purposely refuse to listen to anything they have to say.
Yes.
And twist it and destroy it.
And
the red pill is, as Rollo Tomasi calls it, a praxeology. I wouldn't call it a praxeology, but what I would say is it's a data packet. So think of everything that is red pill related just being in a file and handed to somebody. It's a series of descriptors, not prescriptors, right? There's no prescriptions, just describing reality. What you do with it from there is up to you.
Right.
Right.
By the way, like the guy he just referenced there, Rollo Tomasi, he's like, you know, a real piece of shit. Like he's like considered one of the guys who like helped form the manosphere as like a thing.
Right. And so what's happened is pickup artists have picked up this file, and now it's going to help them teach men how to get pussy, right?
Yes.
They've jacked into the Matrix with the pussy file.
Or another guy picks up this file, right? And he says, oh, well, this can help men, you know, with their dating. Other guys pick up this file and they're like, wait, there's some human dynamics here which we're really missing out on that could really be helpful for men's rights and to advocate for men's rights that a lot of people don't really know about. And so they go that angle, right? And so it's the red pill itself is not actually an ideology. Sure. It's an idea of descriptors, and then there's ideologues, which we use the descriptors to back up whatever their ideology is.
Right. And we had actually the film Red Pill from Cassie J a long time ago, and Karen Strawn early on in the show, like in the, gosh, I want to say 2014, 2015, where we went through the suffragettes. And so the term red pill was around. I think what you're saying in kind of a different way that I describe it is you look at some of these movements where they do have prescriptions, they're right in diagnosing the problem and sometimes incorrect with the answer. For example, some people, their prescription is sleep with as many bitches as possible so you know which one are hoes. And I would think that as Christians, believing Christians, we're like, that's probably not good because it's destructive to your soul. But they're recognizing the problem.
You've heard it here, folks. Having sex destroys your soul. Okay? If you're having sex, your soul, gone. It's been sucked out by the she-beast.
Problem of promiscuity and the breakdown of gender norms. And I think that's a good way to put it. Description or descriptors versus prescriptors. Correct. I will say one thing you do better than anyone. Anyone out there, and has caught my attention, is lasering in on questions where it comes down to this. We know what the fundamental duties are of men. We know what our rights are. Let's get past that discussion.
Do we know what the fundamental rights and duties of men are? I don't think we can agree on that, actually.
But no one wants to define what that is for women. And ultimately, if people think that's offensive, you can scream until you're blue in the face. Young men are checking out, they're not getting married, and that's not good for our country. That's not good for our birth rate. That's not good for our society. So do we want to deal with the...
Think of the birth rate. By the way, I don't think these guys actually give a single shit about the birth rate. I think they just really, really want to come up with a way for them to be like, I don't know, the seed. You know, like they, in the back of their heads, every single one of the guys like this thinks of themselves as like, you know, they're gonna be the one to repopulate the planet. Their seed is just the strongest. Like it's some delusional shit.
Offense that is the reason for men checking out, or do we want to simply leave it at, well, that's offensive. We don't want to ever place duties on women.
Yeah. So I mean, this is the fundamental question. So let's take everything, every type of political ideology you can think of, every type of ideology you can think of, and just put them in a series of propositions, logical propositions. If we take a bird's eye view of all of the world, here's what the world really is. It's a series and sequence of men who are killing each other over resources and land. Okay?
Right.
That's what every nation is.
Oh, okay. That's the only thing that's going on. Men fighting and killing each other. You know, I think that is laughably simplistic and something that only a real dipshit could come up with. But, you know, go off, King. That's
what every tribe is.
Today it could be over kicks.
Yeah, it could be over. It could be over whatever, right? But fundamentally, that really is what's going on now.
It's not, though, and it's never really been that unless you're a dipshit. You know, like this is like when people are like, yeah, the only thing that goes on with like a sink is when you turn on the water and then like the water goes down, and like that's all that's really happening there. That's all that's really like you lift the lever on your sink, you turn the faucet, comes on, water comes out, disappears. That's what a sink does.
Who was that Ragnar guy the Behind the Bastards channel did a show about? He wrote some might is right bullshit book. That's what these two sound like, that ridiculous book.
Oh man, I have no idea what you're talking about, but thank you for the $10 super chat. I very much appreciate that. Yeah, no, it's caveman. It's not even, don't call it logic, because it's just like the kind of thought process a baby might have. You know, like it's the kind of thought process someone with no, object permanence might come up with. You know, someone who's really lacking intellectual curiosity. You know, a moron.
And intuitively actually understand this. In fact, they don't even have a problem with this.
You know, see, like, this is what I mean, right? What a convenient worldview where you're just like, men intuitively understand the true nature of the entire world and the entire history of the planet and every culture on the planet. Men just intuitively know it. You know, it's not like we need to do any kind of like scientific inquiry to like figure out whether those things are true. We'll just assume that they're true. Because, you know, men do be right about everything. Like, again, when I say like this is baby-brained bullshit, I really do mean like intellectually, these people are operating on the same level as like a kid that's like 1 year old. You know, 1 year old. Baby-brained. Morons.
They're like, yep, it's going to be our tribe and your tribe. That's the way it is. Right? You don't even really have to describe this reality for them because they just understand that that's the reality.
Yeah, you don't even have to like know anything about it because like it's just obvious. You know, just like how the rest of the world is super obvious. You know, like if you get into medicine, bro, like how the body works, it's just obvious. You know, like what? Oh, what? You don't know how the food turns to shit in your body? What, bro? It's just obvious. You just intuitively know it. Come on, man. This is a thought-terminating cliche. And as someone who's dedicated their life to the lofty intellectual pursuit of, being a Christian ethicist, you should maybe be more curious about this situation than just everyone just intuitively knows the profound truths about the universe. You know, I'm just throwing it out there. Maybe this is invalidating your entire claim at the beginning of this show.
Reality. Because of that.
Yeah, this it is very much related, Sam and Moose, to the kind of people who talk about like how everything's just common sense, and what they really mean is they just think that they should be able to use their version of common sense to basically just do what they want in any given situation. And in a similar vein, that is kind of how fascists think about the world. They just think, yes, I intuitively know the correct thing at all times, and because I know that I just intuitively have the correct position on everything, I never need to actually do any introspection to ask how I know these things or why I've come to those conclusions. I just am correct because I said so. And it really is, by the way, the internalizing of the classic parent cop-out. You know, the go-to response a parent has to anything they find super inconvenient. it's because I said so. Except it's stupider than that, because usually if you're a parent, right, you're saying that because you're tired. You don't have it in you to have the conversation at that particular point in time. Like, man, just like eat your food. Because why? Because I said so. Like, I just don't want you to die. Just because I said so. Like, in that circumstance, you're trying to get potentially like an outcome, right? As opposed to if you're doing that to yourself, you're just purposely stunting your own intellect. It's you're cutting off your own hand to spite your own face, and it's weird as hell.
What has happened is it falls to the duty of the stronger sex to protect women and the weaker sex. I completely agree that.
Again, the stronger sex is relative here, right? Like, I would argue it falls to the duty of the strong and the powerful in any given situation to defend those without power, right? And that's a big difference here, because my version of this acknowledges that anyone can, in certain circumstances, either be the stronger party or the weaker party. By essentializing it as the stronger sex versus the weaker sex, it's just an overgeneralization in order to, prop up this idea of male or masculine supremacy, right? Oh yeah, this guy is a raging misogynist. Yeah. Dude hates women.
It's true. But also it falls to them the duty of procurement of resources, the refinement of resources, the distribution of resources. And this is at the political level down, the distribution of resources. So that's all politicians ever fight about, all day, every day, nonstop. So if we're in the distribution phase, right, men have procured this and, they're distributing it, and it's women and children who are the primary beneficiaries of it and not men. We know what our duties are. They're very complete and they're not very complex.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. They're not very complete and they're not very complex. So you should be able to like describe them pretty well. Hopefully, maybe.
Protectors, provider, right? And that's how you demonstrate we're the protectors and providers.
Skilled lover, but sure.
Yeah. So what?
Yeah, you have to protect and provide, because again, those are jobs only men can do, despite literal contrary evidence from every facet of society that has ever existed, as well as like, I don't know. Hey, Andrew, you gonna breastfeed your children with your breasts? No? Oh, wow. I guess you can't provide in that way. Like, I just, clearly there are circumstances under which if you have two parents, you have a two-parent household, right? There are circumstances in which one parent is going to be able to protect better and provide better, and there are circumstances that the other parent is going to be able to protect better and provide better. And this is not really based on their biology,
So what are women? What are their duties? So here's my question. I'll ask you, what is a woman's duty? What are her duties that are on par with that of men?
Well, hold on a second. Before Gerald
gross.
Answers.
Yeah.
I think you did a good job because you put him on the spot. I'll give you time to think about it. Yeah. I think you did a really good job of, and this is something that you also address, overt feminism versus covert feminism. You were on Pierce Morgan with Tommy Lahren. A lot of people ran the clip where, there was some back and forth kind of dunking Snippy, but a lot of people missed this macro point that you made, which I think is the crux of it.
So I believe I'm a...
Oh yeah, no, their attempt to portray themselves as smart, or I don't want to say that they're trying to portray themselves as smart. What they're trying to do is portray themselves as intellectually superior. And I think that there is a difference between those two things, right? Like, demonstrating that you're smart involves you actually like demonstrating knowledge and proficiency, right? As opposed to what they're trying to do is demonstrate their intellectual superiority to their viewers, to women, etc., right? Like, you can see it in the way they interact with each other. And I think maybe this might be a good example. I know that there are other good examples coming up later in this this episode. But yeah, it's I don't know, it comes out of a place of deep, deep, deep insecurity. Like, and that's why I say, again, having this guy on your show is basically peak divorced dude energy, right? And like, let's be clear, the only reason Andrew Wilson hasn't gotten a divorce yet is because he found someone who's also completely and utterly insufferable. Okay? So like, I mean, I'm glad they found each other and didn't inflict themselves on some other unfortunate in the world. But like, Andrew Wilson in my mind is basically the embodiment of divorced dude energy. And I mean that in the most denigrating way possible. Because I think you can have cool dude energy. And I also think you can have cool dude divorced energy. He has neither. And I think Steven Crowder is attracted to him specifically for that reason. And you might say, Jack, what do you mean by attracted to him? I said what I said.
There we go again. Piers, I'm a woman of virtue. I happen to be independently successful. I have a husband who's not only a former professional athlete, but is currently a professional baseball coach. So is he not a masculine man? I mean, I'm confused here. What's your concept of a masculine man? Mine is a man who respects me.
Yeah, that misses the point, though. Like, you're still not contending with the argument that I'm making. You're saying inside of society, right this second, right, masculinity is not only punished, but also women on the right, covert feminists on the right.
Hey, how's masculinity punished? I would love elaborations on a lot of these ideas. Because usually when a guy like this says masculinity is punished, it's like because they imagine a scenario where like a woman is uncomfortable with being hit on in like their workplace or something, you know?
Right, are constantly and consistently talking about how they need to have privilege in society. I want men. Their version of masculinity is men who take care of us, men who protect us, men who do all of this. Those are all duties that men have towards women. Great. What are the duties that women have towards men? What are the duties that women have towards anything? What do men get out of this arrangement? What are we getting?
You know, like the thing that I find fascinating about these types of conversations is that I don't think men or women have inherent duties to each other. You know, like I just don't think that that is like a really valid way of examining or thinking about the world, right? And so the question seems childish to me. You know, is that guy still calling himself Big Papa Fascist? I don't know if he's still calling himself that. I think he changed his Twitter handle, you know, in order to go on more of these podcasts. I forgot. I lost my train of thought.
Out of this arrangement, can you tell me?
I mean,
sorry. I just think it's a childish way of thinking about things. Like the same kind of childishness that, like, I don't know, seems kind of like, oh, well, I go into the blue aisle of the toy section because I'm a boy, and you go into the pink aisle because you're a girl, and it just seems really arbitrary when I think the very real underlying reality is just that we all have duties to each other, and those duties change based on our different, like, social, economic positions, you know, because duty exists in society, right? And like that means it's largely a social phenomenon. And so I don't view social duties as inherently linked to anyone's biology. I think it very much depends.
I would argue that men innately should be protectors and providers.
Hang on one second. Let Tommy
most
respond.
men are born that way.
Let Tommy respond to that, and then I'll come to you, Jez. And then Sean, you've been waiting patiently. So
most men are born to be protectors and providers. I can't imagine my dad saying, you know what, to my mom, you know what, I'm not going to be a protector and a provider unless you do this. That's not how real men operate. Real men are protectors and providers, and they marry women who hopefully have some virtue, but also bring a lot to the table as well, that are great mothers.
You know what's crazy is that like he's really exasperated by like a woman telling him like, oh, what about duties, but he's very, very comfortable telling women what their duties are. You know, fascinating stuff.
Others, great wives, caretakers.
This is just supremacy, and there's nothing more pathetic than trying to peddle that.
of the home. There's nothing wrong with being a traditional wife and mother. You're misunderstanding me if you think that I think that women should just be out doing whatever they want. I think that there are gender roles that should be respected. But I don't think a man needs to get something out of it to be a manly man, a protector.
I love hearing a guy who absolutely embodies none of the masculine virtues that I think are real. I love being lectured on what he thinks the ideal man is, because fuck, is it funny.
And a provider. If you think you need to get something out of it, I quite frankly don't consider you a real man.
Okay, so a lot to unpack there, as people say. I will say you do need to provide something for him to be a manly man for and solely dedicated to you. I think that's a fundamental misunderstanding. Yeah, sure to be a man in society, but one dedicated to you. Full disclosure, Tommy Loren, if you've watched the show for a significant period of time, has been on. I have no ill will toward Tommy Loren. I just think that was a seminal moment here in this movement, because you've been often misrepresented. Sometimes people are like, he just dunks on whores. Although, when in Rome, every now and then.
Yeah.
But that's not what you're about. You really, you are, I hate to use the term.
You know, like, I don't know, maybe if you have a reputation for dunking on whores, maybe you're not really a very good Christian ethicist. You know, I'm just throwing that out there. Doesn't seem like a thing Jesus would have done. You know, I'm just seems kind of, I don't know, hypocritical and cucked.
Term educator, because it sounds so self-important.
Logician would be a good one.
There you go. Okay.
So
and you've talked about.
Oh, yes, he's a great logician. Logician, ethicist. Is there nothing this man can't do?
About the way you approach it.
Yeah. So focused logician, focusing from the Christian ethics side. The reason that this is obviously controversial and stun-locking for people is because they expect Christians to act in a very effeminate way.
Yeah, you know, it's crazy that people expect Christians to act vaguely Christ-like. Vaguely Christ-like. It's almost like I don't know. I feel like maybe calling Christ effeminate and gay is maybe a bit heretical, but you know, what do I know?
Because the masculinity of Christianity, especially on the Protestant side, has been completely sucked out by these blood-circling, viperous, sewing circle Christians, is what I call them, and they're covert.
Oh, I forgot. Is he like one of those guys who's just like, did he like convert to Catholicism? Is he like a Catholic convert? Is that kind of like part of his deal? I don't know if that is or not, but it would fit, because basically he's saying all the things that fasci fucks say. You know, if you ever hear someone saying like, the Protestants are all effeminate, they're basically guaranteed to be a fash, you know?
Feminist.
That's a long name.
Yeah. Yeah. I was like looking for a bunch of adjectives to lace together.
Yeah. We could maybe just like bumper sticker it to shrill bitches.
Yeah, that's where that word.
But I understand. So you were asking him before.
Yeah, so like what is it? And
duty.
I thought this was a really important question that I hadn't really thought as much about until I saw that clip with you and Tommy. I was like, man, this goes right to the heart of some of the things that I've been thinking about and talking with my wife about. Wouldn't it be great if somebody was articulating that?
This goes right to the heart of what I've been thinking about and talking about with my wife. And, you know, she's really not quite sold yet on the idea of being like my Gilead slave. But, you know, I think she'll come around. I think she'll come around on that one.
That for women today, because it seems to be a huge disconnect. And you can go back biblically and go, okay, well, what does the Bible kind of say about this? Well, it's obviously, you know, having children and raising children, but there's other stuff too. Like when you read Proverbs 31, it doesn't mean that the wife is just sitting at home barefoot, pregnant, and waiting for the husband to come home and beat her up. Like she does a lot of stuff in that, you know, and does things for the family, you know. So
yeah, she's not like sitting in the home like a slave and just like sitting around or something. Like she's doing things, you know, like helping the family and stuff. And then like I go outside, but she stays in there, and like she's allowed to have shoes, guys. Man, how magnanimous, how big-hearted and kind of this man to allow his wife, the person he loves above all else, how big-hearted of him to allow her to have shoes. You know, that's real love right there. That's real love. And not at all weird as hell.
I would say my answer to that, and what Tommy probably should have said, okay, is that what you get out of it is children, right? I have the children, and
yeah, if they're not divorced from each other, they're divorced from reality. That's very true.
I will be a mom to those children. I'll be faithful. I'll take care of the home, and I will be a good wife to you as well as a good mother. And there's maybe some other stuff, but
are women having children?
Yeah, maybe a few other things, but those are the things they have to do, and if they don't, we all know what happens.
The birth rate would suggest otherwise.
So then it appears like perhaps they're failing at their duty, right? So if a woman brings
yes, you see the birth rate is falling, so women are clearly failing at their duty. Why won't these women have sex with us? I just don't understand. Clearly, it's because they're all bitches. They're all just bitches and whores. That's what they are. That's why they won't have sex with us. What an insane way of thinking about the world. Like, if you're not getting laid, maybe try being like a better person. Maybe try dedicating yourself to self-improvement. Hey, guys, there's a really look, if you're one of those people who's black-pilled about how women don't like you or whatever, I have a great recommendation for you. And no, it's not to tell you to go fuck yourself. It's an actual genuine recommendation, okay? Go watch Mob Psycho 100. Go watch an anime, all right? Because that show is all about how you should always be seeking to improve yourself. It's fantastic. It's wonderful. And honestly, there's nothing more powerful or moving in this world than dedicating yourself to making yourself better. People respond to that. But it is not enough to make yourself better just physically. You have to make yourself better mentally and also in your heart. And if you are incapable of doing that, ask yourself why, and then do it anyway. Because the thing that people are going to respond to, the thing that those women are going to respond to, is you improving yourself and being kind and considerate. It's not enough to just be like a good guy or like a relatively good guy. Be kind and considerate. Think about what other people might want. It's not complicated. But the Mob Psycho 100 rack is very real and strong, and you should watch that instead of watching Andrew Wilson be a dipshit. There's nothing more powerful in this world than being kind in the face of overwhelming reasons not to be.
Brings this up as a duty, right, and knows that you can counter by saying, like in Tommy Lauren's particular case, does she have children?
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Yeah,
I don't think so. And, I'm not going to bother to find out. I'm just going to say that she doesn't. Let's just imagine that she's the worst version possible. Like, I'm not a fan of Tommy Lauren either, but like, I don't know, maybe like know that before you bring it up on a show.
The thing is like, a lot of these women, the reason they can't utilize this as an answer is because they don't live up to the very dutied expectation that they themselves would permeate to other people, right? I agree with you. I think that childbirth is uniquely a thing. I mean, only women can do this. And it puts them in a position.
I don't know. I've seen some men do it. I've seen it. That's a lie. I haven't seen men do this, but I know anecdotally that some men do have babies.
Position of privilege in society. And we put them there because they need to be protected, right?
Yeah.
But what do we get here? We're supposed to be getting the children, and we're supposed to be getting the mom for the children.
I think you should try. Don't put them up to it.
The dutiful wife and the women of great virtues, as I brought up.
Right.
Tommy Lauren, the reason this was such kind of a kill shot against her is because what she said was, men innately want to just do this for us.
Right.
Yeah. So what does she do? She instantly assigns herself and all women.
You literally did that you've done that like so many times in this show. Like, he's banking on a bunch of people watching this who are just gonna nod along with him and not think to themselves, hey, wait a minute, you literally did that about men earlier in the show. You said, like, men inherently understand the world and, like, the dynamics of, like, geopolitics just by intuition. And, like, that's just a load of horse shit, man.
Privilege. We instantly put ourselves in a position of privilege.
Yeah, it's exactly like you did when you said men inherently understand the true nature of the world, unlike women. But yes, his argument would be like, it's different because he's a man, and men do intuitively know more about the world than women. And isn't that just a really convenient crock of shit for him to believe? You know, again, this is... I need you guys to understand these types of beliefs are lazy as hell and fall apart the second you begin to consider that women might be and have as rich a mental world as men do. You know, like, it kind of falls apart the second you're like, wait a minute, women can think and feel the same way I can, a man? Like, that seems like, you should consider that maybe a bit more.
Privilege versus men. It's innate for you, Stephen, that you want to buy me nice shit and then watch me put it on.
Yeah.
Like, you're
Well, what's the right
privileged.
kind of shit?
You're privileged.
Yeah.
Don't you want me to be happy buying nice shit? And you get to provide it. You're doing you're doing exactly what a real man's supposed to do, and I'm doing exactly what a woman's
Andrew, I have
supposed
to tell
do.
you, you're a horrible salesman.
Yeah.
You really are. Yeah. And by the way, it's not so much the putting on as the taking off that's the fun part.
Exactly.
So let's just be clear.
come on, let's just be honest here. Wherever disagreements exist,
With your wife.
that's a crowd pleaser.
With your
Right.
wife.
Let me okay, so that is, and it was fascinating to me, I will say, I don't want to keep going back to it, that no one answered, not even the homosexual sort of ally in there, no one on that show answered at any point.
Time.
And
Any duty.
when they were asked, they still kept coming back to what was clearly an expected duty of men all the time.
Yeah.
And men are checking
And what's
out.
the very first thing they always say? And you'll see it on every single kind of feminist exchange I have. You're not a real man, right? So you get to make the determination on what men are or not, aren't, right?
Yeah.
Now,
You know what's great? I love that Andrew makes this point here when it comes to himself. You know, and this is why it's so lazy, right? This is lazy baby brain thinking. What, you get to make the determination on what men are or not are? Like, and it's kind of like, you do the same thing. You're like, you literally do that to trans people all the time. And like, maybe his response to that would just be like, but I'm a man, so I know women, they are incapable of knowing. And like, I don't know, like, I guess if like that's kind of where you're coming from, like, there's just a deep, deep disconnect, but you are forever going to be confused and like disgruntled with the world if you just are of the disposition that women are intellectually inferior and physically inferior. They do tend to believe that they are also physically inferior. Yeah, Andrew Wilson is a baby trapped in a man's body. He did undergo a big life change.
now, what if I said this back to you? Oh, you can't have children? You're not a real woman. How would that go over? Wouldn't go
very
over
poorly.
Oh, it really probably wouldn't go over very well, right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So by that logic, I'm a real woman in Andrew Wilson's world. That's wonderful to know. Thanks, Andrew.
But if they assign that as a duty that women ought to be moving towards, it doesn't mean every woman can have kids. They can't.
Right.
We know this. But they
That's so true. That's so true. Some women can't have kids. It's very true.
also should not be trying to provide an environment where other women are not. They should not be moving in society towards a lack of childbirth, but facilitating other women having children and families, even if they themselves can't.
You know, like the hit television show. You know the one, The Handmaid's Tale. Dude literally, I feel like at several points throughout this, describes The Handmaid's Tale as like an aspirational thing to want. And if you're like, but Jack, that's he's doing a disservice. He's just saying shit sometimes. And there's gonna be a part coming up, and it might be coming up relatively soon, where he says some real crazy shit. We're getting to it. He says some crazy shit about movies.
And we wouldn't like count them out. You wouldn't say, oh, you had a hysterectomy because you had cancer? You're not a woman anymore. That's not what, of course, that's ridiculous. But what we would say is, if you've had the hysterectomy, right, and you can't have children, that sucks. but you should still be in society trying to create the conditionals so that other women can.
Yeah.
Right.
Not
Instead of
advocating.
trying,
for them.
Wait a minute. I thought they were supposed to be in the home. I thought they had a duty to be in the home and take care of the household. Doesn't that duty persist even if they can't have children? I don't know. Seems like you're asking some odd questions here. Some additional duties of women. I don't know. I'm just seems odd.
Instead of trying to agitate against it or promote against it, you should be trying to at least lay the groundwork down. So that,
yeah, you know how women be constantly agitating against people having children. You know that incredibly common thing that happens all the time where women be advocating against child rearing. That super common mainstream position of that. That's what I do all day, every day.
Other women can fulfill their duties. And how do I know this? Because that's exactly what men are expected to do. You're in a wheelchair. You can't work, right? You can't provide security, resources, things like this. You still have an obligation, right, to at least attempt to facilitate so that others can. Right?
Yeah, look, just like the women of Gilead, okay? If you're a wife, but you're, incapable of rearing a child, it is your duty to hold down another woman, okay? Exactly.
So that you're not getting in the way of other people doing that, and you're still promoting in society that they can. And if you don't, right, you're considered a piece of shit, right?
Right.
Now you're just a crippled piece of shit.
Ha 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 ha. The joke was just you said a mean word. Was that the joke? Did he say disabled folks can't work? I mean, he said disabled folks can't work, can't have children, and if they aren't facilitating other people having children, then they're just a crippled piece of shit. And then they all laughed because what a great joke that is. What a great joke to just be hateful. Basically, they want infertile women to serve as nuns to help women who can have children. I mean, that's one way of interpreting what they're saying.
They don't tell you that part about Lieutenant Dan.
Yeah.
I got no legs. Yeah, you piece of shit.
Yeah, you're just a crippled piece.
Right. Yeah.
Well, hold on. Just as a follow-up, has anybody...
Ha ha ha.
Not obviously Time of the Wren, because I don't think she has, but has anybody else articulated that to you in private or in some conversations? How is that possible? Because it really is the only logical answer that you can have.
It's only logical to be bigoted. Okay, it's only logical to view women as subhuman. It's just logic, says a group of the dumbest people alive.
First of all, people don't think. And secondly, there was a feminist on this, on another Piers Morgan feminist panel I did, the Dunkin' Donuts panel, where the feminist did say, "Why
not sponsored by them?
I do think women have an obligation to have children."
Yeah.
Until I pressed her on it, and then suddenly that obligation, she was like, "Well, okay, maybe not, right? Maybe I don't actually think that." Backed away from it very quickly, and it was all back to what men's responsibility to women are, right? Women's responsibilities have been completely thrown off of them since the sexual liberation, right? Since especially the 60s and 70s, the entire thing was the removal of patriarchy. So if you're going to be a victim class, even though you outnumber men, but you're still the victim class, right? Well, then who are your victimizers? Well, it can only be men.
Yeah, but women aren't the victim class because there are men just existing generally. Women are a victim class because they are generally predated upon by men. Like, there's a reason we have laws around child custody and divorces the way that they are and the way that they're weighted the way they are. And it's largely due to historical statistical violence that came about as a result of the very kind of patriarchy you guys are perpetuating here. Like the kind of idea that like women are only valuable if they are either, making babies or helping to make babies. And anyone else is just a disabled piece of shit. Well, that kind of thinking is what leads to physical abuse of women. This kind of thinking is what leads men to hate women and seek to harm them when they fail their, the duties that men who think like this view as inherent to, existence. And yes, women can also behave predatorily towards women. Women can also behave predatorily towards men. This is not to say that there isn't predatory behavior within the groups. It's not to say that there isn't predatory behavior going the opposite way. It's just that historically, the idea of the supremacy of men over women has led to men historically doing more violence towards women. And that is a fact in the historical record. We have data on it. And like, it's not remotely controversial that that is the case. Now, more and better data is always needed. And for example, I think that we should talk a lot more, and I do, about the problem of rape in prison that often gets swept under the rug because, you know, for whatever reason, again, and I say whatever reason, but thinking the way these guys do, when they talk about how men are inherently stronger and have like they have strength, that's the reason. That patriarchal idea is the reason that in our society it's viewed as a joke for men to get raped in prison. It's why so many movies include it as a punchline. It's not because of evil feminists, it's because of patriarchy. Patriarchal ideas do this to both men and women. It's why feminism is for both men and women. It's because patriarchy hurts us all.
Right? So if men are in charge of systems, that's what patriarchy is. So women, when you're talking about feminism and covert feminism, you see right-wing women do this all the time, where they try to get an egalitarian caste, right? We want egalitarianism with men at the highest echelons, highest levels. Well, that necessarily displaces male power, therefore displacing patriarchy. And you, as a conservative woman, are supposed to be for patriarchy. You're supposed to want there to be patriarchy inside the household. That's what you advocate for, but not in government. Somehow men are okay to rule their household, but the second they're in charge of the planet, then it's a problem. It's like,
yeah, because, well, you know, I'm just going to throw this out there, but maybe, like, even if you grant, like, men are in charge of the household or whatever bullshit about that, but maybe being in charge of a household is different than being in charge of a planet. You know, maybe those two things are different. And also, you know, like, if you're a woman and you're a man, you know, like, and you agree you want, you know, the man to be like more in charge of the household, and that's like just agreed upon in your house, that's fine. If it's not agreed upon in your house, that's going to be like a huge problem. These people are very weird dorks. I agree, QETP. So like, I would say that it is a problem in both circumstances, but also like in one circumstance, you can get consent in a household that's a small enough group of people where you can get consent. The planet is not a small enough group of people where you can get that adequately.
Like, what are you talking about?
Well,
it's
if we
absurd.
had only female world leaders, there'd be no wars.
Yeah, except here's part of that red pill packet descriptors, right? There's some famous studies which were done that went back and looked at queens and looked at kings. And turns out when queens were in charge, there was more war.
Yeah.
Not less war.
I wonder why that might be. Is it because just having a queen doesn't immediately like invalidate and remove like ideas of patriarchal superiority? I wonder. I wonder if the patriarchal idea that women are inferior and weak might not lead some dipshit kings to do more invasions on kingdoms that run by a woman. I'm throwing that out there, and that is just giving them the benefit of the doubt that data that they're referencing there is correct.
And the myth of the matriarchy, anyway, has been completely reduced to rubble. There's never been a matriarchy in all of human history.
Ooh, look, it's my Twitch resub. Nearly 50 months now, back to site chat.
Punky Gal, thank you for the tier 1 sub over on Twitch. I appreciate it. Just real quick, there's never been a matriarchy. Just real quick. Okay, here is the number one result when I just write matriarchy example into Google. In Kasi, India, 1 million people live in a matriarchal society where mothers are the only people allowed to care for the area's children. Men are not part of family gatherings. When a couple marries, the woman passes their surname down to future generations. Huh. Okay. Interesting. What about other one? Here's from Town and Country. What an esteemed research paper. Let's just take Mosu, China. We've got Bribri in Costa Rica. Indigenous tribe with an estimated 12,000 to 35,000 members in this society. Land is handed down from the mother to her children. Women are revered and thus the only people who can prepare the sacred cocoa drink for their religious rituals. That's interesting. Umoja, Kenya. The Umoja tribe is a true blue no man's land because men are banned. Oh, shit. This village is home to women who have experienced sexual or gender-based violence. The Umoja village, which means unity in Swahili, was founded in 1990. As occupations, the women and children showed tourists their village and worked to educate others about their rights. That is fascinating. The Minang Kabau, Indonesia. The Minangkabau people are part of the largest surviving matriarchal society, encompassing approximately 4 million people as of 2017. The common belief in this culture is that the mother is the most important person in society. Women rule the domestic realm of life, and while marriage is feasible in the Minangkabau society, partners must have separate sleeping quarters. And then we have Akan Ghana. According to Mental Floss, damn, they really did a lot of research on this one. The social organization of the Akan people is built around the matriclan. Within the matriclan, identity, inheritance, wealth, and politics are all decided. As the name would have it, matriclan founders are female. However, it must be noted that within the Akan matriclan, men do hold leadership positions. And then you have the Kasi in India, which we talked about prior. Wait, what about the Mosu? Last surviving matriarchy in China. There are about 40,000 of them. They practice Tibetan Buddhism. Interesting. Okay, there's never been a matriarchy in all of human history. Cool. I found 6 or 7 in the span of 5 minutes.
Right.
Ever, anywhere.
Qualify that. What do you mean?
So patriarchy is from the father, right? Most of the time, everything is done through what are called patrilineal means. So from father to son. So, this is the change of power. There have been queens, right? Mm-hmm. But the entire governing body is not women. The entirety of the governing body is always men everywhere, all the time. And essentially, it always has to be that way because we have the monopoly on force. So if you look back through history, you'll see the dumb liberals will say things like, well, in the Rapaho tribe of the Navajos and the, blah, blah.
It's a black comic.
Yeah, we had, it was a pure matriarchy where women were in charge. And then you look into it.
No.
And you find out this is based on progressive nonsense. Verbal history, right? This
again, verbal histories are valid when you're looking into anthropological research on cultures that have been around for a very long time. Number one, and number two, there are literal matriarchal societies that exist right now that comprise millions of people. Hey, just real quick, let's see. So the population of Finland is around 5 million people, and between just the 2 of the different societies we found today in a Google search that took me 5 seconds, we found 2 groups of people that comprise as many people as the entire country of Finland. So it's just kind of okay, but they do exist though. And they exist right now, not in deep history and not by oral tradition, but they exist right now. I don't know, kind of sounds like this guy's just full of bullshit.
This comes down to verbal history, and you go, okay, well, how come it wasn't in our recorded history when we actually started dealing with this?
It is. You just didn't care enough to look because you view women with contempt.
Tribe. How come the men were making all the decisions in the chiefs? Right? Oh, well, that was because of colonialism. How come there's no recorded history of these matriarchies?
I don't know what straw man he's engaging with here, but he's just spouting nonsense.
Because they never existed. And these people are frauds. And what they do is they say, well, there's a verbal history. right? And that's what proves it. It's like, well, where's the...
Ain't that like women to always be happy?
Yeah, where's the anthropology? Speaking of that, women being happy.
Well, you know what? They pulled the same... I just want to say they pulled the same thing with the gender stuff, too. They go, well, there are plenty of societies. You go, okay, name one.
Goddamn gender. I just named 6, man. Just Google search it. Like, look up, like, literal, like, any kind of basic facts. I love when these shows act like it's 1990 or, like, maybe 1980, and you can't just, like, none of us have these things in our pockets where we can just, like, fucking Google it in 2 seconds. They rely on people being lazy, as lazy as they are, you know? If you have any amount of intellectual curiosity, you should be Googling what these people say, like, 99% of the time.
Yeah. And they go to some Native American tribe where they're like, I guess you could kind of act like a lady.
History. It's through our oral history. And it's like, so you can't prove any of this.
Right. A little more oral history probably wouldn't have such a problem with it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and speaking of the other...
Ha 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 ha. Get it? If women gave more head, we wouldn't have as much problems with them. And, you know, I just have to continue to reiterate, Steven Crowder's making a lot of references to gay sex, like oral. There's a lot of, like, pent-up sexual frustration from this man. And again, it's not doing anything but making him look exponentially more divorced and pathetic.
Another thing you just said, and this is interesting. You're talking about when you're talking about the idea of women's happiness. There's been 2 comprehensive meta-analysis studies which have been done, piggybacking off of each other, which study women all over the world. And regardless of the conditions they're in, doesn't matter what, regardless of the conditions, no matter how egalitarian, no matter how not egalitarian, no matter if they're in all the positions of power or not, in a comparative analysis, they're always less happy than men, always.
1, I'm gonna need some citations on that one. And 2, are the women who are unhappy always in the room with you? Because the impression I get from this is literally like, I did a very in-depth scientific study and asked all the women I know if they're happy, and all of them said no. So clearly, women are just inherently unhappy. I will not look into any of the common denominators here. People really just believe him when he says random shit. It's crazy. Women do be depressed in shopping.
So basically, it's just like, even in the conclusions of these studies, it says, you just can't make women happy. You just can't.
Yeah, it says that in the scientific study that got peer-reviewed. Yep. It says you just can't make women happy. Also, my wife left me, and I'm so sad and alone. And next to it is a editor's note saying, like, you know, condolences for your loss or something. I don't know.
Well, that would also go to the psychological profiles, right? Of, like Jordan Peterson talks about this. I know you two have your differences, but increase, higher level of neuroses. The idea of a mom being a worrier, and some could say that's a biological sort of evolutionary mechanism, right? To be worrying, to be on alert, because a part of your job in a tribe, for example, would be to alert those who could thwart the threat, where you can't deal with it yourself. So it makes sense. In other words, shouldn't be offensive. We go, women tend to worry more and be slightly more anxious.
Well, I mean, none of this should be offensive to anybody. Right? In fact, I say that most of this is just like blatantly obvious to the observer. It's like if you ask a person, who's stronger, men or women? Right? Yeah. And they go, well, I'm not really sure. It's like, just based on what you observe.
Yeah.
Again, that's highly situational. Like, why does the observation matter in this context? And like, sure, if you're angling for the answer that like men tend to be stronger, yeah. But like, okay, to what end are you asking that question? Because I think you're going to try and use that very simple generalization to come to wild conclusions that have nothing to do with it.
Just like when you're walking down the street and person lift up heavy shit, do they usually have a penis or not?
Right. Yeah.
Steven Crowder, when his guest says the word penis. And just real quick, How do you know that the people lifting up the heavy shit have a penis, Andrew? How do you know that? Why? Like, no, how do you know that? Are you pulling down their pants and checking, Andrew? Are you copping a feel to see if you can find the balls? Like, what are you doing here, bud? Andrew wants the dick so badly. You know, he might. Look, I'm not saying it. I'm not saying it.
You know, and it's like, well, you know, okay, yeah, they mostly.
Look, guys, sometimes a cigar is just a cigar. It's all I'm saying.
You can cut those off these days, though. So.
There are exceptions, right? Because there's some women who are stronger than men. It's like,
That's not what I'm talking about.
Wait, but there are some women are stronger than some men. Some men are stronger than some women. This is what we're talking in a vague generalization.
Well, and the thing that's so funny about that is it's like, I can see the point. Of course, there's plenty of women out there.
Cool. Then what's the point of bringing that up?
Who are stronger than some men.
Yeah.
I'm not disputing that.
Right.
So what? The exceptions, what
So what? Then why are you bringing it up?
proves the rule, right?
Right.
That's what proves the rule. It's like, because you have to point to an exception, you're saying there's a rule.
It's not a rule. You've already agreed on a generally vaguely true concept. It's not a rule. It's just like you made a generalization. And because it's a generalization, it's not always true. Hence why it's not a rule.
Right? Yeah. Or how do we get an exception to it?
Right. No, you're exactly right. Let me ask you this, because you talk about this, and I think people right now are probably going to go along to say, okay, logically that makes sense. The idea of the duty we've absolved society.
I love that we're just talking about like duties now, as if like they just just totally we all understand the unsaid duties.
Really, especially with the sort of the rise, the ascent of feminism of duties. But let me ask you this on a personal level, because ultimately we do want to get to solutions. On a personal level, on a day-to-day basis, I don't know what the number is right now. I think it's 30-something% of women are going to be single, and young men are uninterested in getting married. And that number by 2030 something, I think it's going to be close to 50%, depending on which numbers you use. So that's
closer to 65% in 25 years.
Right. So that's going the wrong way.
Yeah.
So on an individual basis, what would you identify as the primary problem, or what creates the hesitancy, the sort of reticent nature from men to get into that dating sphere? Because a lot of men are checking out. What needs to be resolved there for men to say, okay, let me give this another go?
Yeah, there's two primary problems.
I don't know, maybe men need to like themselves.
The answer is that humans are weak and men are slightly less weak, so all humans use tools as an equalizer. Hence why men are stronger is pointless.
I mean, yeah, it's not a particularly meaningful distinction in a world where like anyone can pull the trigger on a gun. You know, like it's oh no, we have forklifts and different tools to take care of heavy. Like, I don't know, it's not that meaningful of a distinction. But also, like, if you're having trouble getting back out there, you need to like yourself more. You know, you need to like yourself. You need to like challenge the things about yourself you dislike, push yourself outside of your comfort zone, and like actually grow as a person. Like, that's how you do it. You go out there, you get into the world outside of your norms, and you meet new people who challenge your various ideas. And not in like a debate bro sense, but in like they challenge your preconceived notions and ideas by just being cool, by being rad as hell. You go out there, you have fun, and you get to a point where you look in the mirror and the person you see in there is someone you like. You dedicate yourself to self-improvement until you like yourself, because that's the most important part. And that is ultimately, I think, what a lot of people wind up responding to.
And anybody can look this up with a cursory Google search. Not even hard information to find.
Yeah. Also, by the way, if you're going out, that's a really good point, QETP. If you're going out and you're trying, your goal is find a girl to sleep with you, right? Here, I'll big screen for this. Your goal is to find a girl to sleep with you. That should not be your goal. Your goal should be to go out and have a fun time. Your goal should be to go out, have a fun time with no expectations, because you know what? People respond better to that. There is nothing as cool in a bar as someone who's just there to have fun and like is totally fine just being friends, you know? And if you're going out and your expectation is just set at make new friends, have fun, make some memories, like people respond to that because it indicates that you are safe, you're not desperate, and honestly, that way you can meet someone who you can be genuinely friends with and connect with in that way, and they might also be interested in connecting with you in other ways. You know, like the best way to meet people that you actually want to hang out with and like keep in your life and like forge a meaningful connection with, either, you know, romantically, sexually, or just friendship wise, like, is to just go out there and make friends. People like that, turns out.
The first is in all Western nations. The second you hit industrial,
like, can I just really emphasize, it's not difficult to do. Like, it is difficult to do initially, but also it's way harder to just steep yourself in this shit, you know, where there's just constant intellectual backflips to try and avoid any kind of self-reflection that might indicate you have to change your behavior in some way. And like, you should always be open to changing your behavior, because, you know, sometimes we're wrong about stuff, and it's good to change.
And you start promoting that women go to college and defer their childbearing years for college years, right? You end up with an aging populace for women. Your birth rates, they just nosedive. It doesn't matter where. Okay. It doesn't matter where. Why is that so ineffective?
And by the way, this is why I did an entire video about why why we should talk about birth rates, and how like I looked into it, and it's not, this isn't what he's saying is not the reason we have like birth rates declining. The reason we have a decline in birth rates is because rapid industrialization leads to a rapid shift in our social dynamics, and it turns out it takes a bit for us to learn new social dynamics. You know, in the span of the last century, we've undergone profound like industrialization changes, both like in our initial wave of industrialization, in the, you know, the digitization of our world, you know, like there have been a profound series of changes, and like socially, a lot of folks haven't like changed from those times, but like, you know, women today have a lot of agency because of that rapid series of economic and industrial developments, right? And a lot of men are still expecting or have the social expectations that women are going to behave the same as they used to. And that's just that world just doesn't exist anymore. So you need to adapt, and you need to change, and you need to shift your expectations, and you need to like just get out there and have some fun.
Especially for men. Well, by the time, imagine you take women and you not only are telling them to defer their best childbearing years in college, but what is college? It's not like they're going to women's colleges, right? They're going to co-ed colleges.
Also, now we're talking about some weird shit here, right? Exactly, Nomi Sunrider. Notice what he just did, right? Notice what he just did.
But what is college? And you not only are
20-year-olds, those fertile 18-year-olds. And like, dude, stop being gross as fuck.
It's not like they're going to women's colleges, right? They're going to co-ed colleges. And what happens there? It's basically...
Can we just like point one thing out real quick? Women are also getting laid at women's colleges. Okay, bud? Just from experience, women be fucking like crazy at women's colleges. All right? Because there are these things, there are these kinds of people called lesbians and, you know, bisexuals. And also, you know, it turns out in 2025, women actually have the agency to leave the women's campus and go to a place where men are, actually. It's not like a convent. They don't lock in the women at night. I don't know. I don't know if people are aware of this. They don't, in fact, take all the women's shoes so they can't run away.
Basically a den of iniquity and degeneracy, right? So they're going...
Yeah, you know, when you mix men and women together, you get a den of iniquity and degeneracy. Of course, yeah, absolutely.
Getting their face planted in a pillow and rode hard for about 4 years. Then they go out into career world, do the exact same thing.
Again, just a lot of weird graphic language flourishes to like show his distaste towards women, you know? It's gross. It's gross. Yeah, all the women who go to co-ed colleges are just getting fucked every day for 4 years. This is like, by the way, the insane imaginings of like someone who is desperate to get laid, you know? And if you're someone who, you know, hasn't had luck with the ladies recently, like, just be aware this is an insane hallucination from a guy who has no idea what women in college are doing.
Play the field for another 3 years. Then by the time they're 30, they want to settle down and give you 1.5 kids. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't think most men want a chick who's been plowed 25
If he hates co-ed, he needs to go to a monastery.
times before they get to him, right? And then marry that woman, right? For the luxury of having reasonably unhealthy children.
Now, just real quick, the idea that you wouldn't want to like befriend someone, care about someone, be romantically involved with someone because they had sex with someone before you is just such a deeply weird concept to me. You know, like to me, it's like akin to saying you can't respect your mom and dad because you know that they had sex at least one time to make you. Like, there are some people who think like that, and I just think it's a deeply weird thing to hold on to that represents a profound insecurity, you know? And like, I don't know, who someone had sex with is none of your business, and it doesn't harm them in the long term. Like, it doesn't harm you if they slept with someone 10 years ago. It's did he just imply Down syndrome? Oh, I'm sure he's talking about Down syndrome, autism, you know, insert whatever.
That's why you see such a rise in autism, is aging population.
There you go. Yeah, he's saying older parents are giving birth to sicker kids, right?
Of women. The average childbirth now, 28.
Yeah.
28. You go back just 40 years, right? Average was about 19, 20. Right? That's where we want it to be. We want it to be in the healthiest years of women for two reasons. One, the health of the child.
Yeah, go back to 19, 20 years old. Hey, just real quick, let's
Mom married in her late 30s and had 3 kids. Unlike any of these CKS, she's still happily married.
What's interesting to me is that this guy seems to be really upset at the idea that we did like sex ed classes and teenagers stopped giving birth. You know, like, he seems real upset with the idea that most teenagers are no longer having babies. You know, and like, that seems really weird and gross to me. You know? I'm just throwing it out there. I actually think that it's good that people aren't having children until they are financially and emotionally ready to take care of one. You know? I think that's good, actually. Why are they so obsessed with forcing gender roles on people? It's weird. Because it's a power thing. Ultimately, what we're talking about and why this guy is saying, you know, the prime childbearing years are actually 19, 20 years old. We need to go back to that, right? And it's because, frankly, people like this guy...
all of these guys talking about the golden days of childbearing, and he's talking about the days when most kids died before 5.
Well, yeah, but also, it's a power thing, right? And if you're like a 30-year-old guy who hasn't settled down with someone yet, and you think, for example, it's utterly and completely disgusting if a woman has had sex before, you know, you have sex with them, and you also think that, like, you know, if that is the case, they are ruined, and if they are, you know, older, they might give birth to children that are too unhealthy for you to like want to take care of. It creates a situation where you have, you know, 30, 40, 50-year-old men marrying 18-year-olds. Because they're all looking for, what they have been told socially is the most desirable kind of woman, which is someone who's still a teenager, has no worldly experience, and will be utterly and completely dependent on them for any kind of financial assistance.
Nothing says nuclear family like a stress-fried 22-year-old father of 5 working 3 jobs in this economy.
Oh, no. They're Dragon Warrior. The 22-year-old men aren't going to be the fathers. Because older, richer men are going to step in. In the worldview that he's describing, that's generally what happened, by the way. We know this because that's what happened during, like, feudalism, during like, the 1800s. This was exactly the dynamic, where you would have, 15, 16, 17, 18-year-old girls married to, like, elderly men who had, like, small, crumbling estates. This happened a lot. You see it in, like, the novels and the literature of the time, and it was just kind of thought of as normal. And, like, that's what he wants to bring back, and I find that extraordinarily gross.
Way, way better. And the health of the mother. Women who have babies in their 30s have a really hard time recovering. Yeah. Women who have babies in their 20s, you ever seen that? Like, they have the baby and the next day they're back at work. Right? It's like, it's not even a big...
It's like Mr.
It's like, it's not even a big deal. Man, they just get them to work the next day, Sure, they popped the human being out, but, get them back into the factory, I say.
It's just like a hangover. Yeah, I tell people, think of it like a hangover. When I was 20... and I got really, really, really drunk, the next day I was at work and didn't even think about it, right?
Yeah.
But when I went and drank too much when I was 30, I called in.
Right.
Right? Your body just doesn't have that same...
To be fair, I do think there's also sort of a contributing factor there, increased diagnoses in autism because everyone is on the spectrum now, but yeah.
Okay. Is this Stephen? Stephen, are you telling us you're on the spectrum? Because that would be maybe the least surprising thing I've ever heard in my life. And it would, a lot of puzzle pieces would start coming together. I think that is what just happened there. He felt compelled to, like, step in and offer that correction. Yeah, everyone's on the spectrum now. It's not like a horrible birth defect or anything. You're just on the spectrum. A lot of people are, which is, by the way, like, a leftist position, just as an FYI, and it's the true position that, like, there's nothing wrong with you if you're autistic. Like, God.
Yes, they both contribute significantly. So I see that you've identified a problem. The problem there. Are you saying that the solution? And I know the second one. Yeah. But if we go to solution, there is it. As a society, we need to stop placing importance on college degrees for women and start placing importance on exemplary women and what kind of.
I'll tell you both.
Like what this comes across to me is like the tone deaf, like, ads from, like, years ago of, like, put down the Xbox and pick up the tackle box. Like, but just the manosphere version of that,
Solutions.
Okay.
Let me give you the second part, though. This is the worst part. It's localization. So before the internet, right? How would you meet people? Well, you'd meet them at work or at church socials or through friends or things like that.
Yeah.
Local, right? You weren't really dating 500 miles away because who the hell did you know? There's nobody in your circuit to even introduce you. So Bob and Sally from the same town met each other, right? And there really wasn't that many other people. You selected from what the pool was that was there, and that was it. Monogamy worked really good for that, right? Everybody basically was able to get and select a partner. Mm-hmm. Well, let's fast forward now. And now we have the problem of mate selection hypergamy, or what's referenced as hypergamy. It's pretty simple. If you're a woman and you have a superpower, right, which they do, at about the ages of 17, roughly.
What an interesting age to just throw out there. Women just have a superpower at age 17. And now I'm going to give you guys a bit of a warning, a bit of an out. You can come back in about 5 minutes because this guy is about to get real fucking gross. And yeah, again, the most fertile ages to this guy.
Roughly through 26, 27, where men will literally, castrate themselves to have sex with them, right? They will do insane things in order to get.
Men will castrate themselves to have sex with a child? I actually don't think that's called having sex. I think that's called statutory rape, actually, Andrew.
Get in these women's pants because of this overarching kind of biological need to sleep with beautiful women, right? Well, women within that age.
Beautiful underage women. Gross piece of shit.
Range. They're very marketable that way, right? So.
Yeah, very, just going to throw out there here. It's wild to me that this man just completely refuses to engage with the idea that, like, hey, maybe it's bad that we have created and propped up a social system that prioritizes the youth and purity of, or presumed purity of children to such an extent that you're talking about the marketability of their of having sex with them. Because I can tell you this, again, from how you're talking about it, it seems like the people in that market are men in this circumstance. And it kind of seems like maybe we should discourage, by any and all means available to us, participation in said market. The patriarchal ideas that fuel men going into the market. Like, all of this is built on the assumption that men just inherently want to have sex with 17-year-olds. And guys, I've met men before, and I can tell you, there is not an inherent desire in all men to have sex with 17-year-olds. That is just not true. That is a lie. And frankly, it's a lie perpetuated by the grossest people in the world.
When they go and they're like, they get slip in the DMs of a very famous man, for instance, and he's like, hey, I'll fly you out, right? Then they get wooed and he bangs them.
Yeah, when a 17-year-old slips into the DMs of a very famous person and then that person statutorily rapes them.
Right? And then they think that that's the type of men they can get.
As a husband.
As a husband.
That's the... Yeah, what a privilege for those underage girls to be raped. Disgusting.
Or as a long-term mating partner, and they can't. And so now they have trouble making sex selection.
Yeah, this is him saying these thirsty rape victims are the problem.
Or making correct sexual selections for themselves because they feel like they're in a league they're not actually in, because men will sleep with you when you have that superpower. Doesn't mean that they'll marry you. Right. So localization is a massive issue. So what happens when you have 20% of the men who are the ones who are the women, all of the women are mostly going for, right?
Again, this idea that like 20% of the men have like 100% of like women's attention or whatever, it's just not true. This is loser shit. Like, this is the loser mentality. These people try and prop themselves up as like alphas or whatever the terminology is these days. But like, it's loser shit. When you start thinking like this, all women want the top 20% of men, and if I'm not in the top 20, they won't want me. That's loser shit. This is just someone essentially negging you, right? Like, you're watching content that is negging you into being emotionally loyal to the content creator. And that's like some loser shit. They're taking advantage of you, So like, they're taking advantage of you to further their own business ambitions. Again, watch Mob Psycho 100 and dedicate yourself to a life of self-improvement. You will get so much more out of life if you do that, I promise. Don't listen to these chuckle fucks.
Well, that doesn't leave a lot for everybody else. That's why the same men are fucking 10 different chicks, 13 different chicks, this type of thing. And this is why these women will ride the carousel and they're not settling down till they're 30. Right?
This is why these 17-year-old women ride the cock carousel. Again, like, fuck, man. This is gross as shit.
I'll say
just make up your own terms.
There's also something in there, I think, not that you're glossing over it, but it's quite important. Let's say,
Stephen, are you going to bring up the statutory rape implications and direct comments that he made? Of course he's not.
I mean, let's just say, for example, like, let's say it's LeBron James. I'm just saying, like, a famous person, right? Okay, there is the problem.
Do this to LeBron.
Okay, now someone thinks that they have LeBron as a husband, right? That level of status. But there may be, and I'm just using this as an example. I'm not talking down. I'm not talking crap on LeBron. They sort of overlook some other facets that, hey, he may not actually bring the qualities to the table that you want in a husband. This may just be a guy who's super famous, super rich, high status. But you take that good and you go, oh yeah, but by the way, he's never gotten married. And by the way, maybe he has never actually been someone who's valued fidelity. Then you have a guy who does, but isn't LeBron James, and you just see what's lacking. And I see that quite a bit.
Well, let me, to give you a little pushback here. Let's evaluate it from a different angle. It is the case that I
don't know, by the way, how much more I can take of this. We're about halfway through, and I think I'm going to cut it off in about 8 more minutes. Just because that brings us to the 3-hour mark of the stream, and I feel like we've covered enough of this. Like, I really wanted to get to that point because I think it's like encapsulates the entire disgusting nature of this ideology they're peddling. But like, I don't think I need to subject you guys to like another 2 hours of this.
At least need to be attracted to the person that you're going to end up with, right? Mm-hmm. If that's the case, that you need to have attraction, well, I mean, like, what other things are you willing to look over so that you can have the thing that you, for men especially, visual, right? Yeah. Attractiveness. What else are you willing to gloss over?
And, you know, I think we're about to hit the other point here where he just kind of reveals how much he hates women.
Can she be,
you know, and I know that like he's already been pretty overt about it, but brace yourselves.
A stupid bitch? Yeah, maybe she can. Can she be fucking crazy? Probably.
The crazy, you know the crazy hot scale exists for a reason.
Could she, you know, could she kind of be a god awful person and a fucking embarrassment? Well, yeah, but she's really hot, right? So it's like, so when it comes to attraction, though, we've missed that aspect for women, right? That women are not attracted to that many men.
You know, like, genuinely, if you think like this, when you're like, if you're thinking any of these questions, when you think about the person you want to date or whatever, the answer is just no. Don't date that person. You know, I can tell you guys, I love my partner. I have literally never thought about my partner remotely like that. You know, I love her with all of my heart, and I think she is incredible and beautiful and perfect, and I basically worship the ground that she walks on because I fucking adore her, and I let her know every day. And like, the idea that you would ever be with someone where you're just like, yeah, she's a stupid bitch, but she's hot though, like, that reflects so much more on you and your heart than it does on the person you are thinking about. And like, I love my partner, but like, if you're thinking like that about someone, there's something wrong in your heart. That's why you need to like take a break and you need to work on becoming a kinder person who actually gives a shit about other people.
And so they when you say like husband qualities, right? Oh, sure. They'll even grant all these qualities. Like, they make spreadsheets and flow sheets for different men who are in their rosters, right? They'll be like, he would be a great provider. He'd be this, he'd be that. And I'll keep him around till we're in our 30s. And if there's nobody else around who's good looking, hey, I'll settle with him. That's fine.
Superjet guy, he does get to a point in this where he talks about how he learned to talk about politics from his dad. And I think it reveals a lot. We might speed ahead to find that part before we end.
You know what I mean? He can be that guy. But what happens when it's an attractive guy who also happens to be a piece of shit? Well, just like men, they're probably going to select the attractive guy.
I'm not disagreeing. What I'm saying is, so give you an example. I know a store.
Man, I love when, like, you know, who hasn't had the experience of like breaking out your dating spreadsheet? What a fucking weirdo.
Story of a woman who was a side piece, okay, to a very successful man. Mm-hmm. All right.
I know the story of a woman who was with a side piece to a very successful man, and this man definitely wasn't me.
Right. And he bought her, I believe it was like a Maybach or something, and then she ended up getting remarried. They ended up getting divorced. But they would get into arguments, and she would say like, "Well, you know what? You don't do an X, Y, Z." And it's like, yeah, but that.
Notice, by the way, there's an awful lot of divorce talk in this. I do think this is peak divorce. He's hit the summit of divorce mountain.
I was doing it because you were his side piece and he didn't want his wife to know.
Right.
But she was bringing, where this guy was basically fighting a phantom. Like, yeah, but this is not that. You're not a side piece. This is now a marriage. And so it brings a litany of complications as well, where you pick the good and you sort of forget the bad or what was lacking. Sure. And that, it goes back to the point. It's just a different way, I guess.
LB, I read that in his voice.
Addressing, they think that this is a marriage when in fact it's a fling. And the threshold is very, very different for men. It doesn't make it right. It doesn't mean that it's right for those guys to be sleeping with a bunch of women and destroying them for future marriages. But that is a reality, and women...
Also, like, again, the resurrection of like this, like, Christian idea that if like a woman has slept with someone before, they're ruined. I don't understand it. Like, I'm sorry, like, if you've slept with a woman before and then you sleep with her a second time, do you guys think that like the second time you sleep with the same woman, like they're ruined because they slept with you prior? Like, like this is like insecure nonsense. Like this is like the like a Reddit story about like, you know, I just can't stop thinking about all the guys she might have slept with before me, and if they were better in bed than me, and it's just like, you're just fucking insecure as shit. Stop it. That's on you. That's not her problem. That's your problem.
Will often willingly destroy themselves, and it's a problem.
Look at it like an X-Men superpower that almost virtually all women have when they're between, like I said, the ages of like 17.
Man, you're really doubling down on the underage aspect of this, huh?
26, 27, and then it kind of just goes away once they meet the wall, right? And the wall always wins. So
yeah, it does if you're a gross creep. Also, just something like to note, especially if you're a bit younger here, folks, understand that like as you get older, you start being more attracted to people in your age range, in your age group. Generally speaking, right? The idea that as you get older, you're still going to like be like super into like teenagers as if you were still a teenager, that's not normal. Okay? That's not normal at all. And so like Steven Crowder and like Andrew Wilson here are just like so fucking gross to keep hammering home on this. Destroying them, what does that mean? Egg eat egg. Basically, people who come from this Christian nationalist point of view, they will describe women who have had sex before marriage as, you know, gum that has been already chewed. You know, it's been used up. It doesn't have the flavor anymore. It's been cooked in the sun, and you wouldn't put like gum from the street in your mouth, would you? So why would you put a woman from the street in your bed? You know, it's like they talk about women as if they are used up, shriveled husks if they've had sex before marriage. And this is just like a new iteration of that idea. Not even a new iteration. It's just the same idea. You know, it is objectifying, quite literally.
But through those years, doors magically open for them. Gifts magically show.
Wait, why do men think like this? Women who had sex before are more fun and experienced. Men think like this because of patriarchy. Because patriarchy, which is extremely old, right? I would recommend, by the way, reading David Graeber's book Debt. Because I think it's called Debt, like the first 5,000 years or something like that. Because it talks a lot about how the relationship between men and women and sex got commodified in order to protect bloodlines, essentially. that bloodlines became very important for the passing down of material goods. It became very important for maintaining political power. And like that has been the case for thousands of years. And so one of the things to really consider here is that this idea is very, very old, and it's rooted in these conservative traditions designed to protect chastity and, kind of lock in bloodline ownership, essentially. And in the modern era, that idea just doesn't make any sense. In the modern era, where we're not like deciding kings by bloodline, like it doesn't make any sense. And the issue is conservatives still cling to that idea because it's old and ingrained in the thoughts and the ideas that they learned, growing up. It gets passed on and reproduced generation to generation, right? And so guys like this in like the manosphere are, repurposing those ideas for our modern society and trying to shoehorn them in to places where they don't really apply and don't really make sense. But if you're dumb and don't have any amount of intellectual curiosity or introspection whatsoever, or, if you're just young and haven't really thought about things that much, they offer a seemingly simple answer to why can't I get laid? And it's because women are bitches. Women are bitches who are sleeping around all the time. And to like someone who's not curious or not introspective or very young and simply hasn't had the time to question those ideas, that's a very attractive, simple answer, right? And it is something that lulls you into complacency by believing like, well, it's not it, I can never improve myself and actually find someone who likes me for me because all these women are bitches and whores who only go for the top 20% of men. So there's no point in me, putting in the effort to better myself and to go out and have fun because no one will ever love me because I'm not lovable. That's like the central fear that these people take advantage of. And so the solution to that is to really emphasize that these people are full of shit. The Andrew Wilson and Steven Crowder are full of shit. And they profit off of your hopelessness. They profit off of lulling you into a state of perpetual insecurity where you hang on their every word for like dating advice. And rather than learning to love yourself and rather than bettering yourself, something that if you are, in a healthy place, you should always be seeking to do. Rather than doing that, you just wallow in misery. And, stop it. Go watch Mob Psycho 100 and change your fucking life. You are the one who has agency to do that. Go do it. No one else can do it for you.
Go up, right? I mean, dinner is just magically paid for. It's literally a superpower, but men don't really have this superpower except a few. So
also, like, I don't know. Again, it's 2025. I think most people are splitting the bill. I'm just throwing that out there, that idea.
Put yourself in that situation. Like, think of it objectively from that situation. You're a very good-looking and successful man who can sleep with whatever beautiful women you want. Is it really?
Sorry, I don't know who this dude is, but he looks like an actual PDF. Well, he has been advocating for treating 17-year-olds as adult, fertile women, so you're not that far off.
So hard to envision that if you could, like that was just dropped on your lap, wouldn't you use it? I think the answer most men would be like, yeah. It's just that we're not really ever presented with that, most of us, right? It's very few of us who are. And women, on the other hand, have that superpower for a little while, almost all of them. And that's why you breed such narcissistic women, right? Because
Yeah, the real problem here is all those self-centered bitches, am I right? It's definitely not us, right, guys? It's definitely not us in the way we think about women, right? it's all those whores, am I right? We're not the problem, it's all them. Wait, is that Big Papa Fascist? It is Big Papa Fascist. He's been doing the media rounds. We're gonna skip ahead here, because I think you guys, I think I'm grossed out enough about this. Let's because they keep talking about like going to college and like virtues and chastity and like we've already talked about a lot of this stuff already. Oh boy.
Problem that I think we have is how do we convince women? And look, I use the same argument for homosexuality. That is not where life is found according to scripture. That is not where happiness is found in scripture.
You don't need to.
Yeah, you can't be happy if you're gay. I love that these people are like, yeah, women are making unfair assumptions about men. Anyway, the gays can never be happy. Like, damn, dudes.
Convince women.
No, I'm just saying
the opposite.
Well, I think they're finding out the reality of it now, but pop culture still tells you, go and shake what you have and get what you can. Go and be on OnlyFans. Go and do all of these things. Like, pop culture may take a while to catch up, essentially, to what we're seeing in culture, but we've got to make some big structural changes.
To convince women. Women are going to go. So women are the most easily indoctrinated, most easily propagandized out of the sexes. Okay.
Yeah. Also, he like earlier when we were talking about how he views women as inherently inferior. He does. He considers women feeble-minded because of all of the hormones going to their heads. We just can't do the thinky parts very good because of all of the estrogen coursing through our bodies. Let's see here.
That your reason, I'm going to use logical arguments, and then I'm going to hope that your reason, right, that you use inductive reasoning to look at the logical argument and you backtrack it, right? You take it back to its original, wherever its core was, and then you mut it forward and go, does that make sense or not?
Man, I love that this guy considers himself a logician. Fucking nut job.
Well, you can do that with women, and they'll even agree with you, and then dismiss it, because you have to think of it from the purview of their sex. They have raging hormones going on.
I fucking told you. I happened to jump exactly right to the right spot
all the time, which makes their brains actually erratic, right? They often will do things, by their own admission, that don't make any fucking sense because they have these raging hormones going on in their body. Now, every man right now who's going...
But men don't have raging hormones. They don't... Look, all that testosterone coursing through men's veins, it doesn't count, okay? You know, like, you ever see a man go into a road rage? No, you haven't, because they're all cool-headed. They never do stuff like that. Women never do stuff like that either. No one does stuff like that. How dare you? I'm so filled with estrogen! I want to get to the part where he talks about his dad. Just real quick. We started talking about dads. We'll end talking about dads. Oh, here we go. Found it.
Biggest bargaining chip. Your most leveraging power.
Right. As opposed to solid gold, most women now they're more like Bitcoin. Volatile and no one really knows the origin.
Yeah.
They make a really gross comparison between the gold standard and fucking Bitcoin for women's chastity.
Ask this. Did you always know, or I should ask this, were you always a skilled debater? Did you always approach it through this? Like,
also, Andrew's a dog shit debater. Like, he's a dog shit debater. He's really fucking bad at it. Like, if he's losing a debate, he'll just start shouting slurs. Like, he's not good at debate.
For me, the Socratic method was something I had to learn after high school. I was never taught that in school, or was it something you had to sort of train yourself up in?
Yeah, my dad was really big on talking politics around the dinner table, even when I was a kid.
I did too.
So I'll give you my impression of my dad. This is him when I was 8 years old. He would be in his tidy whities and he would be in a chair like this, and he would be in front of the television when Clinton would be on, and it would go like this. You know, the problem, son, is these fucking Democrats are fucking scum, and that fucking bitch needs to be hung for fucking treason, and they're all communist, and they need to fucking die. What's for dinner, honey? right? And I would just
so a good man.
And I thought it was hilarious, right? But I mean, he would just lose his mind watching it, right? But what would happen is we were around the dinner table and he would explain. He would explain his reasons for it. He'd be like, listen, here's how this works and here's why it works that way. And so he gave me the most important thing ever, which was he taught me how to think.
Yeah.
And I think that right there really encapsulates everything you need to know about this conversation, everything you need to know about what we've covered for like the last 2 hours. It explains the entire problem. When you ask, how does someone like this wind up believing these things? That's how. Yeah, his father, a very rational man, yelling at the TV that we need to hang government officials. Very rational, hinged man. Not like those emotional women. Am I right? Sorry, those emotional bitches. So, yeah, none of that tiny whitey mania carried over, yeah. I think this is a good note to end on. Because I think we have, like, plumbed the depths, and we were able to then skip about 20 minutes of preamble until we hit this point. So, yeah, how do I wrap this up? I wrap this up by telling you, hey, you, stop being a whiny little babby man, okay? Stop having baby-brained thoughts. You know, look around you and look at how shit this ideology is and actually go, you know what? I'm better than that. And then go watch Mob Psycho 100 and start, like, doing things that improve your life, okay? You don't need to read Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life. You can just start improving your life. Go fucking do your dishes. Go make your bed. Go, like, take a walk. Go run somewhere. Do things, okay? Because it is never too late to improve yourself. You have never stopped making yourself better, and you shouldn't stop now just because a bunch of ugly on the inside assholes told you that the entire rest of the world was the problem, and you shouldn't be going for those easy, lazy answers because they are almost never true. Okay? Focus on cultivating kindness, and you know what? You're going to be all right. So, with that being said, segment done.
Riverboat Jack is going to town. All the viewers gather around. Twitch and YouTube is where she streams. All that content is bursting the seams. Politics, dating, and plenty more. Her sense of fashion you'll adore. So grab your stuff and hop aboard. We're going straight to Jack's Discord.